Okay, so this is a story my stepmom has told me about the experience she had with my dad, who has since passed, God rest his soul. She has no idea how to explain anything that happened, but our family likes to theorize. The two of them were out celebrating my stepmom's birthday. My dad, being a loving husband, got my stepmom tickets to a concert she really wanted to go to. This was a big deal because the closest major metro is about 2 hours away from where they were living at the time. The plan was for them to drive into town, see the show, and then drive back home the same night. My dad was a road trip expert. It was kind of his thing. I personally witnessed him drive 16 hours in the same position along winding coastal highways on nothing but Pepsi, Lay's potato chips, and 7-Eleven coffee. Plus the route is a super simple 2 hours of highway. 1 hour driving east, take a left, and 1 hour driving north. Moving on, they really enjoy the concert and are ready to head home. It's about 11 p.m. and very dark. They're on the highway for about 15 minutes and are just barely making it out of the metro when they got pulled over. My dad, who liked to pride himself on his ability to talk his way out of a ticket, but was really just a kiss ass, slows down, pulls off the highway and into a parking lot. He then asks my stepmom to hand him his information from the glove box. As she's fumbling with the books and he's watching her, neither of them are paying attention outside the car. When they both look up, they realize that there are now dozens of police cars in the parking lot, all with their lights and sirens on. The sheriff's office, state patrol, and local patrol cars from all different agencies across the metro area. Both of them are terrified because, being from a small town, they have never seen so many police before, let alone pulling them over. In the middle of their panic, as my stepmom puts it, almost as soon as they showed up, they all just vanished. Then we were the only ones in the middle of the parking lot. Both of them are freaked out, but there's more. They continue their journey home talking about what in the hell just happened to them. They finish the first hour stretch of highway, and as they got closer to the exit where they head back west, my stepmom notices that there is nobody on the highway. My dad begins taking the exit off the highway when instantly, my dad, stepmom, and their car find themselves in a field near the highway a couple miles before the exit ramp they just took. Both of them vividly remembering taking the exit and are extremely confused and just want to get home. My stepmom tries to call the police, but there's no reception. They return to the freeway, take the exit, and are returned to the same place in the same field a couple miles from the exit. They take the exit one more time, but there is no glitch this time. They turn onto the last hour stretch of highway. This is when things get freaky. At this intersection of highway, there is a gas station. My dad pulls off to get gas. As they pull into the parking lot, they notice that all 4 or 5 of the cars are white, and there is nobody pumping gas into any of them. My stepmom gets out of the car to pay for gas when my dad grabs her arm and tells her she should stay in the car. He tells her, "I have this feeling that you are calling out for me from really far away, but I can't reach you," and the both of them agree to go to a different gas station. They make the rest of their trip home without anything odd happening and people on the highways again. Once they got home, they sleep it off and life is normal. A day or two later, when my stepmom was reading the newspaper, she finds an article stating that the gas station my dad stopped her from going into was robbed that same night, her birthday. A guy killed the attendant, took a girl hostage who was in the store. He took her into the field behind the gas station to a tree where he killed her and then himself. My stepmom thinks my dad and her were supposed to be the ones in the gas station, but at the last second, fate changed its mind. My dad didn't like to talk about it. Years ago, when I was still a teenager, I went shopping with my dad at Walmart. He had a seizure, and it was scary. The end. That's the story I've related to friends and family in the past. Here's what really happened. I was a 14-year-old young lady, and I was shopping at Walmart with my dad, a friend of mine, and a few small siblings. We were on vacation. This was a strange Walmart in a strange place, and thus, it took a little longer than we expected to find all of our items. Dad said he wasn't feeling well. In the checkout line, I turn around and start glancing through all those last-minute impulse items. Gum, candy, magazines. Glance at my dad. He's staring at the ceiling. "Dad?" I ask. He doesn't reply. Doesn't even blink. His eyes remain fixated on the ceiling above me. But there's nothing there. "Dad?" I ask again, more intensely. Something's wrong. This is where the break happens. One moment, I'm looking at my dad, who is staring at the ceiling with his mouth slightly ajar. The next moment, I'm kneeling on the floor about 6 feet away. My dad laying flat on his back on the floor, his head at my knees, my hands cradling the sides of his head. I'm calling out loudly, panicked, "Dad! Dad! Dad!" He doesn't answer, and his body straightens and strains. Every muscle in his body is tight. He's struggling with every ounce of energy he has, but is not moving at all. Everyone around us simply stands and stares. He's not breathing. I can hear someone scream, "Dad!" and realize it's me. Within a few moments of my panicked screams, off-duty firefighters who happen to be nearby in the store come over. They don gloves, they assess his vitals, and ask questions. "Did he hit his head?" one firefighter asked me. I don't know, I lament. I'm wringing my hands. I don't know. Dad fell on the floor. He must have hit his head, right? A bystander, my young friend, chimes in. No, he didn't hit his head. She caught him. The firefighters are able to call an ambulance. My dad grunts and a mouthful of blood comes pouring across his lips. I'm convinced he's dying. People on TV always cough up blood as they die. He reaches the hospital. He lives. Life goes on as normal. What I can't figure out, even more than a decade later, is that break in time while Dad fell. One moment I was looking at my father, and the next he was lying on the floor and I was 6 feet away from where I'd been standing, cradling his head in my hands. My friend, the witness, says I caught my dad as he fell, but I don't remember an iota of that action. I don't remember contemplating, hey, maybe he's gonna fall, or I should walk over there to see if Dad's okay. Nothing. It's like I blinked and reality shifted around me. I'm told I calmly walked over to my father, grabbed him by the shoulders, and guided him backwards to the floor as he fell, keeping his head from hitting the floor. I was 5'2" and 95 pounds at the time. My giant father should have crushed me as he fell. I don't know how I managed that. I don't remember the exact year. All I know is that I was either 14 or 15 years old. I hung out with my two best friends every day, and they were roughly the same age. Almost every day, we go to the woods and hang out at the spot. We just hang out, eat, and talk. We were never really into drugs or anything, so that definitely can't be an explanation. One day after school, we decided to go chill at the spot. By the way, I'll call my friends John and Ben. Ben is a little overweight, so we're on our way to the spot and John starts crying. He doesn't know why he's crying, and neither do we. He's not sad, tears are just coming out of his eyes for no reason. But this has happened before. Anytime we've talked about ghosts or the paranormal, John's eyes would start to water. I've always enjoyed scaring people, so I said something like, "There's probably just some demon close by, no big deal." It made John smile, but then Ben says, "That dog just scared the shit out of me." I followed his eyes and saw a medium-sized snow white dog standing in the middle of the pathway just ahead of us. I immediately felt terrified. There was no collar, and it wasn't moving. It looked like it was staring right at John. It didn't wag its tail or bark or anything. Ben crouched down and patted his legs and tried to get the dog's attention. "Here, boy." But nothing. The dog kept staring at the same place. Maybe it was just the way things added up. We usually aren't the type to run away over a dog looking at us, but it just didn't feel right. We all agreed to leave. I looked back multiple times and saw that the dog was in the exact same place, still looking in our direction. We went back to John's and spent that Friday night at his house. We talked about the dog and John crying a couple times throughout the night, but for the most part we just played Smash Bros, ate taco salad. His mom made the best taco salad. We usually woke up really late at John's house. Must have been sometime in the afternoon when we decided to leave. We all felt pretty weird about going back to the woods, so we decided to go to the park instead. I don't remember who walked on it and discovered it, but one of us walked over a drain cover at the side of the street and felt it move. Whoever it was tried it again and saw that it could move quite a bit. We inspected it. The little cover could be removed. Normally these things would be welded down, but for some reason this one was loose. Naturally we lifted the cover, got inside, and slid it back on so nobody would notice. It was pretty awesome. It was surprisingly clean, and we hung out in there for a whole hour or two listening to music on my phone. There was a decent-sized hole next to us. It looked like it went only 10 or so feet in and then opened up. It looked like there was a brick wall on the other side. We played Not It, and Ben ended up having to squeeze in and tell us what was on the other side. It led to the sewers. Once he got to the opening, small bits of sunlight would shine in from the manhole above. We knew we had to get down there. Unfortunately, there was a pretty big drop to the bottom. There were some metal bars attached to the brick that formed a ladder. However, this ladder only made it down about halfway. We immediately went back to the first part of the drain, and John went home to get some rope. When he returned, his little 10-year-old brother was with him. None of us wanted him there, but if we didn't let him hang out with us, we knew he would tell. We let Ben tie the rope to the top metal bar in the opening. He was a Boy Scout, so we figured he'd be the best at it. He crawled back out and told us he didn't want to be the first one to go down. We played Not It again, and John lost. John climbed through, grabbed the rope, started working his way down, using his legs against the wall to make the descent sturdier. I followed and got down the same. It wasn't too difficult at all. Ben came down next and had a harder time, but he made it down just fine. John's little brother, after saying, "Okay, this time I'll do it," several times, finally made it his way down. It felt damp and gross at the bottom, but it was also kind of awesome. There were 2 large pipes that went in different directions. It looked like there was some sort of fungi growing in the corners, which concerned Ben for some reason. John always had a keychain on him, and on that keychain was a small flashlight. Good thing too, none of us wanted to climb back out anytime soon. He shined the light down each tunnel, and we tried to inspect it the best we could from our position. He chose the one that looked the cleanest and started going down it. We're only 10 feet in it when John's brother started complaining. "I don't want to be in the back. I don't think this is a good idea. I want to go home." We assured him that we wouldn't be there for long, and if he stayed in the back, he'd be able to get out the quickest in case we ran into a sewer monster. I'm not sure how far we went down that tunnel, but it was obviously too far. Shining light down both sides showed nothing but darkness. We started hearing squeaks from rats up ahead. We decided to turn around, disappointed that we found nothing exciting. It was probably only a few seconds after we turned around when we noticed that the trail of water underneath us was starting to get wider and was flowing. Complete panic. Ben pushes John's little brother out of the way and moves back towards the entrance as fast as he can. We followed behind him. I don't remember us saying much of the time besides a lot of fucks and shits. We hear a huge thunder strike and start moving even faster. I wanted to just push John's brother out of the way, but I didn't. The water was flowing faster and faster. Our legs had to get wider and wider. I didn't want to get my pants wet. I didn't want my parents to know. It took several minutes, but we made it to the opening, and Ben was already hopped up on the rope, working his way up, using his legs against the walls. There was no more sunshine through the open parts of the manhole. Water was falling through. A huge stream was gushing out of the hole we had climbed back through. Ben was getting soaked trying to climb up. The water was pouring on his head. We were shouting at him, telling him to hurry. It was a bad idea. This was all a bad idea. Why the hell did we do this? He grabbed at the ledge of the hole and his hand immediately slipped off. He made no sound till he hit the bottom. A huge squeal-like sound came from him. He landed flat on his back and made a splash. He lay there making a gasping sound before he started to breathe normally and then crying. We didn't know what to do. John's brother kept saying he wanted Mom, and John looked like he was about to start crying himself. I knelt down and asked Ben where it hurt, and he immediately cried, "Don't touch me! Don't touch me! Get my dad!" We're still panicking, but we start climbing up. John's brother goes up first and quickly, but takes a long time trying to get through the hole. The current is strong and pouring, but he makes it through. I go next and see John's brother on the other side trying to push open the cover. He's having a tough time. I assumed he was just too little to do it. I climb through the small current in the hole and get to him. As soon as I get to him, I put my hands on the cover and start pushing. It doesn't budge. I look through the only opening and feel what I consider to be one of the worst feelings I've had. A large truck was parked on the side of the road, with its front tire right over the only loose cover. No way. No way. John climbed through and asked why we didn't open it. There's a fucking truck! I was crying pretty hard by now. John's little brother was screaming for his mommy, and who the fuck knows what Ben was thinking. His face could have been underwater by then for all I know. Things get fuzzy here. Things skip around. I remember us all screaming, but the storm being too loud for anyone to hear us. I can see John trying to punch open the cover while crying. The last thing I remember from it was darkness. Floating in darkness and not being able to breathe. I could feel movement in my legs. It was probably John and his brother kicking around trying to find air. And then, nothing. Felt absolutely nothing. Then a sudden feeling of being sucked into a light. That's the only way I can seem to describe it. Me, John, and Ben were back in the woods. I was looking at John, and Ben was looking at a white dog on the trail ahead of us. There was no opening of the eyes. There was no waking up. We just existed again. We all looked at the dog, and then John began to shake as tears poured out of his eyes. There was no actual crying, no weeping. He was just silent. Both Ben and I cried. I don't know how long it took us to speak, but when we did, we couldn't say much. We all knew what happened. We all experienced it. We were all confused. We all died. At some point, that dog left. None of us saw him leave, but he did. When we were able to, we all just went back home. We promised to talk about it the next day, but we didn't. Around 4 or 5, a flood hit. The same one that killed us. My dad's car was totaled because he left it in the street. We talked about it a few times after it happened, but we have no explanation. I tried telling my mom about it, but she thought I was crazy. She had me see a therapist for a few months. I ended up having to go to an alternative school from social issues, and I haven't talked to John or Ben in 2 years.